The suicide rate among youngsters ages 10 to 14 has been steadily rising and has doubled in the US from 2007 to 2014. Children should be more aware of the words they use and how they can affect someone's life. My experience with using derogatory words towards someone has in fact affected my own life. For the sake of confidentiality, I will change the name of the person I will be talking about to Julia. I had just began elementary school. My sister Hannah and I were the new kids and hadn't met anyone yet. My very first friend was a girl named Julia. She was just as shy as me, but somehow we just clicked and instantly became friends. Hannah had begun to make friends of her own, and Hannah's friends would eventually become my best friends. As the school year continued, I was hanging out more and more with the friends Hannah had made. And while I still hung out with Julia on frequent occasions, I would sit with the other girls. One day, while eating lunch with the girls, Julia came up to me and asked if she could sit with us. I was about to say, "Of course, no problem," when one of the girls said, "No, why would you think you could sit with us?" I was surprised by the statement, and Julia just looked at me, waiting for me to say anything. I remember vividly my answer. "Go sit somewhere else." Julia and I's friendship would never be the same again. I learned a lot about what people thought of Julia that day. According to the girls, no one liked her. She smelled bad and wore the strangest clothes. For the next 5 years, my friends and I made Julia's school life a living hell. For years, we constantly bullied her, telling her that she needed to take a shower. And it wasn't just me and my friends who bullied her. The whole school recognized that she smelled bad and looked funny, so therefore everyone had to bully her. In 4th grade, our principal called me, Hannah, and 3 of our other friends to come into his office. He told us that Julia was struggling, and he asked us to, for at least a week, befriend her, have lunch with her, play with her during recess. And so we did, but we only fulfilled a week of this. And it wasn't until 5th grade when I started to realize Julia's situation. She came to school one day on crutches and a wrapped-up leg. She had been shot in the leg by her older brother. I learned that her home life wasn't easy. Her family had a hard time keeping up with the bills, and her father was an alcoholic. Running water in their household was hard to come by, and that's why she came to school smelly. So there was a reason for it. And while this heartbreaking information did not end the bullying she endured at school, it did lessen it. Entering middle school changed this. Middle school was filled with new people, so that meant new opportunities and new beginnings. The bullying had stopped by my friends and I. And while I did not talk to Julia on the daily, when I did see her, I would say, "Hey, how are you doing?" A week before freshman year of high school, Hannah and I were at soccer tryouts. On the last day of tryouts, our friend called us and told us to check the mail when we get home. A letterhead came from the Hillsborough School District saying that a student had passed away. Julia had committed suicide. She had hung herself, and her mother had found her. I've thought of this moment almost every day, and it has been 6 years. I used to blame myself for her death. I was the one who bullied her. I was the one responsible for her death. When I first heard the news, my thought was, what have I done? I did this. How could I do this to someone who was my friend? Why did I put her through this? How could I have caused her so much pain? I think back to her death and remember how much her death impacted my life. When the speech was first assigned, I knew immediately that this is what I wanted to talk about. It is the biggest event in my life that has had a significant impact on my life. Of course, having to relive this again is always hard, but it gives me a good reminder of how I have worked to make my life better for Julia. I've worked with an organization called American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Every year, this organization holds multiple walks around Oregon in order to grow awareness for suicide. And every year since Julia's death, I have walked this at least once. I do this walk with my twin sister in remembrance of Julia. Since being in Colorado, I unfortunately haven't been able to do the same walk with my sister. However, my closest friends know my story with Julia and how it's affected my life. Together, we participate in the Denver Walk once a year. The year after Julia's death, I actually invited her family to join my sister and I to walk in Portland, Oregon. We walked together with Julia's initials written on Sharpie on her wrist, and we wore matching t-shirts that everyone who participated in the walk got. Julia's death has made me a stronger person, and it's because of her that I've lived my life to its fullest potential, even when it seems my life is going downhill. It's always important to choose carefully the words you use because you never know what affects someone more than it could affect someone else. But it's also important to remember to keep moving forward. In the words of Rocky Balboa, you, me, or nobody's gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward.